It's embarrassing. Please sit down. Shh. Wonderful. So, a foggy morning in Pensacola. It was foggy when I landed yesterday. I imagine all of you have that experience. Come in, can't see anything, and then it's right there and you land. What happens if it isn't there? I tell you, I'm an amateur pilot. I'm not current now. It's been some time since I've flown, but I used to fly an airplane quite a bit. And I learned, I had the experience. Mind if I sit down? This is great. So I came to Florida a long time ago. I was flying airplanes and having a great time. I learned to fly Cessnas and then sailplanes, and I even flew a kite with a motor on my back called paramotoring. But in this case, I came to Florida. There was a program on some years ago called American Sportsman, and they take somebody in the news, a celebrity of one kind or another, me, and I did all kinds of things. I went up to Alaska with a bow and arrow, and I went in a kayak, and I went down rivers. But in this case, I came to Florida, not to Pensacola, and I've forgotten exactly where, but let's say it was Pensacon. And to a military base where a camera crew came with me for me to learn aerobatics. So, they make an airplane, I presume still do, called a Pit Special, a specially designed airplane for aerobatics. So aerobatics depend, by aerobatics I mean all the things that airplanes can do, like acrobatics in the air. So there's Cupid rolls, there's the thing, all kinds of things that sane people won't do. So they gave me a military instructor who's used to cursing young men who are just learning to fly, like in Pensacola. They don't say, "Excuse me, sir, would you mind turning left?" They say, "You dumbass!" You know. Well, that's the way the guy treated me. Wow, that's tough. So we got in the airplane, this Pit Special, and flew, got into the air, and then he did something I'd never heard of before, called a lump shabak. Nose over tail, wing over wing. So it's like tumbling in the air. Like to give me a shot, like, here's what I can do, and you better be able to do it, because I had a week to learn aerobatics for American Sportsman. So, the whole idea was for me to solo at the end of the week. So now, I'm in Florida at the end of the week, and American Sportsman wants me to solo. The Air Force guy keeps saying, "Well, I don't know whether he's ready or not, you know." And then finally, on a Saturday evening, the fog is in, the sun is setting, and it is okay, he can solo. So now I go up. Oh, and the last thing he had said was, "Now remember, don't ground loop, because on these tail draggers, what can happen as you land and you're taxiing, you can flip over. Well, when you're safely on the ground, it's probably the most dangerous part." I'm up in the air, it's foggy like it is now, the sun is setting, and I've got to find the runway. And I'm used to flying a Cessna, which is where you can see where the runway is. This is a tail dragger. You can't see the runway. You're coming in blind. What you have to do is you look over the side. to see if the runway is there. The runway wasn't there. I had to fly around, and I'm an amateur pilot, I don't know what I'm doing. And finally I landed, but that was my experience in an airplane some years ago in Florida. So, that's my way of like warming you up, you know? Hello everybody in Pensacola. So now, are we set up to ask questions? Do we have a microphone around? Over there. Over there. Okay. So they pushed you in a corner. What's your name?
I'm Beverly.
Hello, Beverly. What would you like me to tell you?
We met yesterday twice.
Oh, God, it's good to see you again.
I tried to get you to kiss me, but you wouldn't.
Well, I never know where your mouth is good. Hey, that's true. You don't know where. You know, people go like to shake your hand. Well, where's your hand been?
I told you, my husband said it was okay.
Excuse me?
So this leads to the question.
What were you about to say?
I said, I told you my husband said you could kiss me.
Yeah, that was even more alarming.
Okay. You are so funny. I love your humor. When did they discover that you were so funny?
My mother, as I emerged from the womb. This is a funny baby.
Okay, next question. Thank you.
You're welcome. That's the only line? Okay. My dear.
Hello, my name's Maureen.
Hello, Maureen.
The Twilight Zone.
Twilight Zone, I remember that.
The Devil Head.
What?
The Devil Head. In the restaurant?
Oh, yes, okay.
Remember that thing? The little
Yes,
head
yes,
part.
yes. Plucking out the thing, reading, don't go.
What?
Right? Have I stunned you into silence?
I was just wondering what happened to that prop.
Wait a minute, you've lowered your voice and I can't hear you.
The whereabouts.
No, louder.
The whereabouts of the prop.
The whereabouts of the prop?
Yes.
Is that a prop like an airplane? What are you talking about?
The Devil Head prop. Where is it located?
The devil head.
What the hell would I know where the crap is? Wait a minute, don't go with it. Stay with the microphone. Why are we yelling?
So that I may be heard.
You know, my friend, this is called a microphone. Now, why would you ask that question? What is on your mind? I mean, you could have asked, do I know the meaning of life? Instead, you asked, where's the prop of something I did 60 years ago?
My dad told me to ask.
Is your dad as hard of hearing as you are?
Yes.
It runs in the family. I guess people in Pensacola are as funny as this. I thought it was all quaint houses.
Do you know the meaning of life?
That is so smart. That is really funny. What's your name?
No, my name is Brian, and I don't want to know. If you know the meaning of life, I don't want to know. I don't want it to be a
I wasn't going to tell you. It costs a great deal of money to find out what the meaning of life is.
I have two very brief questions. One
Yes.
is, what is your favorite song from Has Been, which is one of my favorite albums. I love Ben Folds and the whole band that worked on that. And the other is, what influence do you think Star Wars had in the late 70s on getting the Star Trek movies greenlit, if any?
Common People, which wasn't a song I wrote, was apparently very popular, so that might be from Common People from Has Been. Star Wars. The story I know is that Star Wars came out, George Lucas invented Star Wars from like very basics. you know, in a galaxy far, far away. I mean, it was, and he invented this lovely story that had heroes and villains and strange people, and it was a big hit. So, as I understand the story, at Paramount Studios, which is where we had done Star Trek, I'm about to tell you, but this lady is immortalizing me on her camera. There had to be a meeting, like in the boardroom. The head of the studio, the head of stories, whatever, the 3 or 4 people are sitting around a table. And one guy says, hey, Star Wars, big hit for 20th Century Fox. What do we got? And maybe there was a guy bringing in the coffee who said, yeah, you know, 5, 6 years ago there was this series on called Star Trek, and it lasted 3 years and then it was canceled because nobody watched it. Maybe we could use that and put up a big movie to compete with Star Wars. And the head of the movie company, whoever he was, who didn't know anything anyway, said, what a great idea. Let's make a movie of this with this failed series that's been off the air for 5 or 6 years. Let's make a movie. Who in their right mind would do that? So, as a result of the success of Star Wars, they made Star Trek. They brought in Robert Wise, who was a big director. He was famous director and editor, and they made him the director of the thing they called the movie. And then they had the script written, and then they said, are we going to use the old cast? And I said, why not? And so we made the movie. And the movie was not great. It was all right, but it wasn't great. And so when it did, it was mediocre in the box office. The same people said, well, I guess we failed. But again, as I understand it, the wife of the head of the studio, when the head of the studio came back home and said, we're not going to do any more Star Treks, the wife said, are you crazy? That's a famous... And he decided to make one more movie, and he turned it over to the television department, and the television department made The Wrath of Khan. Thank you. I was thinking The Wrath of Rush Limbaugh, but that's not. And the success of The Wrath of Khan begat the rest of Star Trek. Okay? You guys are great. On a Saturday morning in the fog, it's so damp right there. God. It's water. I mean, it's just, what? I got water behind me. I got water in front of me, too. Oh, man, thank you. Oh, no, that doesn't help. Okay. Hello.
Hello. My name is Pete.
Pete?
Yes. I started reading your book, Live Long and...
Yes, Ellipse.
It's very good. Very good. I highly recommend it.
Oh, you hear what he said?
I'm wondering about your grandchildren. Have they seen the show? Yeah, I'm sure they have, but what do they think about it?
My grandchildren, Star Trek?
Yes.
You know, I would never get an ego from my family. Like, I write all these books. I got this, really, a book from my heart out there now called Live Long and dot, dot, dot.
That's a good one too.
Thank you. Say it again.
Very good.
And the ellipse, the 3 dots, is what do you do with your long life? Sure, live long, and then what happens after that? And my thought in the book is, you really can't tell somebody what to do. After the age of, I don't know, 8, 9, 10 years old, you go to tell an 11-year-old what to do, and they say, no, I'm not going to do that, one way or another. Because everybody filters reality through their own means. We all have different experiences, so the word love to you is something different to them. So offering advice is tough because we don't know what we're talking about. We're discoursing in different terms. So the book suggests that here's what I did in this or that situation. And if that works for you, great, but I can't advise you to do anything. So, but except to say yes to life, to the joy of life. We're here for a short period of time, whether you believe we continue on as ourselves somewhere else, or that this is the end. We're given a limited period of time here, and the fog is either ugly or beautiful depending on your perception. The fog is beautiful because it's here and it's now and it's part of us. And that's what I think we should be perceiving in our life, that everything that happens to you adds to your life, whether it's good or bad. You're alive, and you're alive for let me tell you how short a period of time you're alive. Every moment is so valuable. You have to treasure every moment that you have, because it's over before you know it.
Good book.
So my family, I know that a couple of them have read the book, but I would say, did you hear? So I have this Christmas album. I have a country music album out there. I have a country music album called Why Not Me, which is after the song, Why Not Me? And I just performed that song at the Grand Ole Opry on Friday.
Wow.
I was at the Grand Ole Opry! What an experience. So, I'm doing all these things. Like, what? Sing for you. I can't sing. My problem is I can't sing. So what I'm trying to do is fuse words with music. There's a song, and here's an example of the problem I have. One of the songs in the country music album is I Should Have Loved Her. And the song is, I should have loved her instead of doing all the other things, working and doing, and I should have loved her. So these songs were sent to me by composers in Nashville, and I have them on my phone. I finally made a choice of 12, and one of them is I Should Have Loved Her. So the guy demonstrating the song, probably the composer of the song, who is in himself a wonderful singer, and all these songs that were sung by demonstrators who I think were the composers could be stars themselves. It's just a matter of show business, and lightning didn't hit that person and hit somebody else over there. So the singer of the demonstrator of I Should Have Loved Her holds I should have loved, and he holds the word I should have loved her, and he holds the note love, so we, the listener, get an idea of the anguish of I should have loved her. But how do you do that with just the spoken word and the music behind? And that's my problem. I can't sustain the note like that wonderful singer could. But I'm an actor, and I should be able to show you the anguish, and that is the problem I have with what I do. and yet, the more I do, the more I'm able to solve it. So that the country music album is really good, as I thought the Christmas album was. So my kids, this is called rambling. My kids, just Daddy. Hi, Daddy, what's happening? I was in front of 1,000 people. Oh, really? What are we going to have for lunch? There's no chance for an ego here, I'll tell you that. Yes, buddy. Yes, I would think you're next in line. I want you to feel confident that when you're next in line and your turn comes up, demand what it is you want.
Hello, Mr. Shatner.
Hello.
Well, my question, well, first of all, my name is Jenna with one N.
You what?
My name is Jenna with
Jenna.
one N.
With one N?
Yes.
How unusual, Jenna.
And I would like to ask how you found yourself in the world of the performing arts.
How did I get into it? Is that what you want to know? How did I get into the world of performing arts?
Yes.
What a genteel way of saying, how'd you get into showbiz? Well, I've seen athletes that when they're a step or two or three slower, you know, when they're 30 or 32 or 33, they're still young people, very young people, very, very young. Say, you know, I think I'll be an actor. Models, athletes, people who never really trained that way, but now that they're end of one career, they think, hey, I think I'll be an actor. For me, I was very young. I was 6 years old, and I was in front of an audience, and I did something that made them cry. And when I took my bow, I saw people weeping. And I thought, wow, I made them weep. And then later on that day, it was a camp play. And my father picked me up and says, "It's my boy Bill. My dad's giving me love. I'm going to be an actor." So I've been a performer all my life. And I've worked very hard at it. And every year that goes by, all the time that goes by, I keep thinking, oh, that's how you do it. I keep discovering new ways. Like for example, what I had just mentioned about the album. How do you say I should have loved her? How do you make that anguish? And you think about it, you worry about it. Or if it's a part that you're playing and it's a character, how does that character read that line? How can I make that line, read that line just a little bit differently? How can I get a laugh over here without spoiling the meaning? And there's an intellectual process. And I remember seeing, a long time ago, an actor by the name of Marlon Brando. Does anybody know? And Marlon Brando said somewhere towards the end of his career, oh, it's child's play, and I'm not interested in acting anymore. And I thought, God, that's the exact opposite of what I think. You know, it's an artist's point of view. It's an artist living life. I remember meeting somebody, or I felt this way, or and try and repeat it and try and distill it so that I could make it real and meaningful to you. That's what actors do. And so to say, I think I'll be an actor, is not what I think I'm doing. So I started at a very early age and have worked at it since then. I've never done anything else but write, direct, perform. Yeah.
Thank you.
How are you at the time? How are you at the time? Ladies, gentlemen?
20 minutes.
What is it?
We have about 15 minutes.
How long? What?
You have 15 minutes.
I didn't have breakfast, so, yeah, breakfast. So we went to,
go to breakfast.
so we got out early, and the car drove us to, there's like 2 spots, like the Cracked Egg and there's the other one. And there's 1,000 people. There are more people outside the Cracked Egg than there are in the theater. Couldn't get breakfast there. Then there was the other place on the other side of town, and had more people. I'm kind of faint. So I haven't eaten. Look at that nice blue uniform.
Hi, Mr. Shatner.
Did you make it?
No, unfortunately, I did not.
Did you buy it?
I bought it.
Where did you buy that?
I bought it on eBay.
You bought it by mistake? Oh, eBay. Is it real? I mean, is it a genuine?
No.
No.
It's not a movie property.
It's just a blue piece of cloth. With a little gold there, a little black thing. How much is it? Oh, it's very pretty. It fits. How did you know what size to order?
They have size charts.
And it fits really well. Did you have to adjust it in any way? Did you have to adjust it, sew it, take it in, let it up? No?
It's perfect.
Unbelievable. That's better than they made for us on the show. And a hell of a lot cheaper. They made everything. You know how the Air Force, there was that toilet that was $1,000 or something? That's the way it is when they make things in movies. They just, I mean, $10,000 for some blouse. And people steal all over the place. No, really. There was a break-in at Paramount years ago. They stored all those costumes in a large stage, much bigger than this theater, 3 times the size of this theater. Row upon row of Star Trek stuff. One weekend, somebody came in through the roof. They broke in through the roof in a movie studio, and they emptied this. It was unbelievable. Yeah. And nobody ever caught them. I've got 7 in my room. No, they never found them. Well, you know what? So they must be. Maybe you've got one right there. I take it you have a question.
I do. My name is Sissy, and I love you. I do.
How wonderful. I treasure that.
I enjoy your country music,
Oh.
and I noticed that your last album you co-wrote or co-performed with Home Free, one of my favorite acapella groups.
Is that right? That's
Yes.
wonderful. Yes, they were great.
And I'm wondering if you have any further business with them, and are they going to do acapella with you?
Capello. No, that's Italian restaurant nearby, isn't it? Go to Acapello and get the. No, we're not. But the story of the album, of the country album, is amusing, at least to me. They asked me. Heartland Records asked me to make a country music album with Jeff Cook of Alabama. And so I said, what am I going to sing? And they said, well, we'll sing you songs. And there used to be a building in Times Square years and years ago. The Brill building it was called. And in the Brill building it was like the place where composers went. Each composer had an office, a small office, and a piano, and they would compose songs and try and sell those songs to the performers of that age, which were in vaudeville and burlesque and all. So Al Jolson and Eddie Cantor, those great performers in the 1900s, the early 1900s, would go to the Brill building to buy songs. Well, play me a song you want to sell, and they play it, they sing. So in the summertime, when the windows were open in the Brill building, you could be on Times Square and you'd be hearing this music coming from this building. And it was renowned that this is where the composers worked and where people went to find a song that sometimes became a standard and lives, if not forever, for a long time. So I don't know what happened to the Brill building. I don't think, the building may exist, but the function no longer exists. The function seems to have gone to Nashville, where, although not in the building, and I've worked in Nashville a couple of times, 3 or 4 times, it's spread out, but it's in an area where some of the greatest musicians in the world live and are studio musicians, and when they're needed, like Ben Folds on the album I did with Ben Folds, would make a telephone call to one of the great drummers or the great guitar player, and he'd be at home, yeah, I'll be right down, and come and play for an hour or 2 on the album. That's the way it is in Los Angeles. When they're casting something, they need somebody right away, or there's most of the cast, most of the people that they'll employ in a movie live in the environs of Los Angeles to be ready to go to the studio, like these musicians in Nashville. So, the head of Heartland Records, Brian Curl is his name. So Brian went to these composers and said, would you, Shatner's looking for songs, and as I say, they composed these songs, sang them. Brian Curl sent them to me on my phone. I picked out 12, so there were 12 songs that I had on my phone, and as I wandered the world to various strange places like Pensacola, I would listen to these songs and learn these songs. So we made a date to record on a Tuesday morning. I was in England performing in England. I flew on a Sunday night from England to Nashville, arrived in the late in the evening. Brian Curl picks me up and drives me to Jeff Cook of Alabama. The people in music would know his name. And he has a castle. He built a castle with turrets and, you know, and a studio right there. So I arrived early Tuesday morning, like 2 o'clock in the morning. 10 o'clock Tuesday morning, I'm in the studio. I have learned these songs for me, I don't know how anybody else does it, but I need to rehearse a lot. I need to feel it, I need to get it, so I don't have to think about the words or what I'm doing. I just want to be able to perform it. So I've rehearsed these songs again and again and again. So I was performance ready. I didn't have to rehearse. I went from 10 o'clock to 6 o'clock that evening and laid down my tracks. And as far as I was concerned, that was what I did on the album. For the next week while I was there, Jeff added his voice, and then they brought in musicians and stuff like that. It's called sweetening. And they sweetened the record, but I had done it in one day because I had rehearsed for weeks before. Your question was?
If you're going to collaborate with Humphrey again.
What?
If you're going to collaborate with Humphrey again.
So, collaboration. So, that moment is gone. I don't think we can repeat that. An interesting thing has happened. It's fairly common knowledge. Jeff Cook is ill with Parkinson's disease. So one of the great guitarists in our lifetime, Jeff Cook, who his instrumentals on Alabama are incredible. I did a large number of interviews Friday for my appearance that evening with Jeff on Grand Ole Opry. And at one of the radio programs, they played a cut of Jeff Cook. In fact, I don't know how the guy did it, but Jeff was asked if you had one, because now he can no longer play the guitar. His fingers have gone. And the disc jockey said, Jeff, if you could give us the piece that you think, the best example of how you play. And Jeff thought a moment, he said, well, now I've forgotten what it was he said, but such and such, on such and such record, the guy had the record. The guy was able to play the very piece that Jeff Cook talked about, and it was incredible. The fingering was incredible. Jeff Cook was incredible. But now the disease, and I guess you'd call it a disease, has affected not only his fingering, but his throat as well. He tires very quickly. So when we were on the air, he had made a mistake. And this is the Grand Ole Opry. I mean, it's the people of country music. It's where all the country music artists want to go. In fact, they took a circle. They took a picture of me in this wooden circle. It's apparently where everybody wants to be photographed, on this wooden circle. And I had spoken earlier about how I've been to many theaters. I've toured a lot with various things. And I've been to theaters that are legendary, where great actors 100 years ago trod the boards. This theater is one of them, isn't it? It's an old theater. How old is this theater? About 100 years old, right? At least. 90 years old? Is that what you said?
95.
1930, so that's almost 90 years old.
95 years old.
90. Around 90 years old. And then I was in the Grand Ole Opry, and I spoke about the ghosts that live in the boards. Like we leave a trail of electrons, our electricity, our little transmitters, leaving trails. We all do, we're all connected. And you could feel the ghosts coming up through the boards. And I said this, I'm standing in the circle where everybody wants to go, and I could feel the ghosts of the previous performers, like I can right now, like I can feel all the actors that were here. Their presence is still here. Audiences that were here 90 years ago